Hi, and thank you so much for inviting me to talk about my story on this such encouraging and inspiring platform. So thank you. My name is Martina Kelades. I am the founder of Life Out Loud Mental Health Consulting and Creatives. I am originally from the Annapolis Valley, the beautiful Annapolis Valley, minus Nova Scotia, currently residing in Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia. And my career in terms of the entrepreneurial side, of which I'm doing now, really just began a year ago. As I mentioned, founded this business around mental health and mental health promotion. And it came as a surprise, basically. I've worked 10 years as a personal development counselor and facilitator, working with different nonprofit groups to support individuals who had identified barriers to gaining and essentially maintaining employment. So my role was to coach individuals around developing employability skills, essential life skills. I did a lot of coaching and advocating for these individuals. And the last few years of my career, I started to notice a shift and started to acknowledge that there probably was going to be some change coming in terms of the work that I would be doing. I actually really struggled to accept that truth because for so long I was my career. I self-identified as the personal development facilitator, and that was who I am. I'm also a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, and it's I guess funny how you spend so much time at work anyway that it certainly does become a large part of your life. And so when I started to notice a shift, I denied it for a period of time. I kept working. One of the things that I do is keep busy to avoid any kind of feeling or avoid dealing with anything that is uncomfortable or difficult. And it's quite, I look back at it now, and this is something that I coach people along, is to opening up and talking about these things that are hard and challenging, but yet I wasn't doing that myself. And so I continued to be busy. I started to initiate a conversation with my organization about possible opportunities elsewhere outside of the work that I had previously been doing. And fortunately, I was trusted to take on a new project within the company, which involved doing corporate training and also diversity inclusion training for internal projects, but also outside of or the organization. That was, I thought, the answer to the struggles, the inner struggles that I was going through. At the same time, I also had co-founded a mental health organization, which my interest in mental health comes from a variety of different areas. Personally, there's mental health and mental illness is quite prevalent within my own family. And also the majority of the clients that I'd worked with through my work as a personal development coach and facilitator identified as having some mental health difficulties. And I, completed a degree at Mount St. Vincent within psychology, and I just really wanted to explore this area more because it became, so common. I was certified as a mental health first aid trainer through the Mental Health Commission of Canada, and I thought, what, this is the road, this is the avenue that I really want to take. I think this is so important. I think this is, the route to the employability skill training, especially, we can't send people in the workforce if we're not identifying root issues in terms of why, employment perhaps hadn't worked out, or issues around, lack of housing or lack of supports and resources. So I kind of made it my mission to really put that piece forward. As I was traveling through this new area, I really started to, I guess, deny myself myself the opportunity to even support or to acknowledge even that I'm pouring out in so many different areas of my life that it's important that I step back at times and take care of myself. I was supporting an individual or family, someone close to me who was really struggling. And I was doing this nonprofit work and creating a platform for individuals to share their narratives around mental health and mental health issues. And it became really big and it took off quickly. And, it just wasn't prepared for that kind of, exposure and the amount of work and time that went into it outside of working a full-time career. It left me feeling depleted in so many areas. And again, I started to deny it still. I remember very clearly this one class I was facilitating. It was for a group of continuing care assistants that were in training. And I was talking about caregiver burnout. We were talking about compassionate care. We were talking about stress management. And I remember really pressing the value and the importance around self-care to the group. And I remember standing in front of them thinking to myself, oh my gosh, you're such a fraud. You are here talking about the value and the importance of it, but yet you're not taking care of yourself and you're not doing the work that you say is so important. And that I think that was the start of a turning point, and it stuck with me for so long. About a year later, things really started to decline. It started to become obvious that I was struggling. I still denied it, but my employer, they were so supportive and they encouraged me to take some time off. And eventually when I accepted the fact that I'd be taking time off, I said, okay, I'll do that. And I'll be back in 2 weeks and I'm going to, take on this and I'm going to do this project. And all these things are going to just fall back into place again. I never did return to that job. I actually went into a really low period in my life where I think I lost a sense of purpose. Like, I know that in my work, presenteeism was quite obvious. I was showing up, but I wasn't really there. I wasn't working to my full potential. And I just remember, like, in the end, every day, just waking up, hitting the alarm 5 times, dreading going to work, and like thinking about getting home after work, getting my pajamas on and crawling back in bed. Like that was kind of like the motivator to get through the day. And it wasn't healthy. And so while I was off, I really started to sink into this deep depression. And I remember I was going to therapy. I'd been going to therapy before, but I remember just feeling like, what's the use? Like, my career is over. No one will hire me in the future. I feel like I'm worthless now that, I can't show up for other people. And that was, the moment that I realized I need to start showing up for myself. And I remember scrolling on my feed on Instagram because that's what you're supposed to do when you're feeling bad about yourself, is to look at everyone's highlight reel and how everyone's living their best life. But I came across the story of a young girl who was diagnosed with a terminal illness. And the look on her face was just a look of pure joy. It made me think about, this young girl knows she will die soon, but yet, she was granted this wish to have this puppy, and she was so happy. And even her frail body couldn't even, overshadow the joy that just exuded from her in that photo. And that just always stood out for me. And I just remember learning, I don't know if it was a couple weeks or a few weeks later of her passing, and I cried. I was still in my bed. I was still like, couldn't shower. I just remember feeling so sad, but also encouraged at the same time. because the the moment of, okay, I have air in my lungs right now. I have an opportunity to live. And so, I prayed, I listened to instrumental or inspirational music, sorry. And it really came to me that I have time left and I don't want to waste any more days. Not that, it's not important. Like, it's okay to not be okay, and it's important to take some time and allow your body and your mind to rest. It's okay to do all that. But I said, moving forward, I need I need something that is more intentional. I want to live a life that's lived on purpose. And so I wrote, with my other work, I did a lot of writing and journaling and shared that through blogs. But I wrote a blog called Burnt Out, Not Broken. Um, I was just diagnosed with depression and generalized anxiety and attachment, or not just attachment, but oh my gosh, I even forget the term, but it's basically around not being able to manage life stressors. Um, and so I wrote how I was feeling. I wrote about what was going on. I was being transparent and vulnerable. And I just, when I was getting ready to publish that um, blog, I was so terrified. I thought it could either be really encouraging or insightful for somebody, or it could go the opposite way. And then there's, cue the judgment, cue the fear, not everything else. So I shared that, and so many people, strangers, wrote me and said, I'm too struggling with how do I balance life and children and work, or I'm also not feeling fulfilled in the work that I'm doing, or I'm struggling in this relationship, and there's parts of your message that really resonated with me. So I thought, wow, I know I'm not alone, but this just validated the fact that it's so important to talk about these things. And so over time, I just really started to explore, okay, where do I want to go next in my career? Because I'm not staying here forever. I'm going to unstuck myself. Like, it's time to get out of this funk, and it's time to show up in the world um, in a real and intentional way. And so I started this business, Life Out Loud Mental Health Consulting and Creatives, which my work is to go into organizations and businesses and really hold space for these conversations around mental health and mental problems and psychological health, and how it's so important, especially in the workplace. I was fortunate enough to have an organization who supported me and would provide resources when I needed, but I know that's not everybody's experience. And so I really want to come into these environments to show how valuable it is to talk about mental health and mental health challenges and how it is affecting the work environment. And and the creative part of my business is really just diving into how we as individuals are continuously interacting with the world around us, with media, with current events, with with one another, and our connections in the community and our interactions with one another, and also how we are interacting with ourselves. Because I think that's the part that's missing so often, is that we're so overwhelmed and we're so bombarded with so much noise outside of us that it distracts us from that still silent voice that's within every single one of us. And if we take the time and we're intentional and just sitting and exploring how we're feeling, how we're doing, that can really help open up opportunities to, improve our mental wellness. Like, my work is more around mental health promotion, so not, trying to fix everything or put out fires on a crisis end, but look at everybody as having mental health, because we all have mental health. Today's actually Bell Let's Talk Day, and so 5 in 5 people have mental health, and I think sometimes that gets overlooked. People hear mental health, they think mental illness, but we all have mental health just as we have physical health. And so it's really important to you know talk about these things. It helps build resiliency, it helps build connection, it helps minimize isolation, and it helps bring out the courage that exists within all of us. And so that's essentially the work I'm trying to do. Also starting a podcast around just talking about these things in a general and, an honest way of how, life is just, it's here, but how are we involving ourselves in it, and how are we participating or being active participants in this journey that we're all on? So it's a journey. Yeah, in terms of helping women not feel ashamed for feeling a certain way, or feeling that they've got to have that cape on all the time, and that because I have this perception, or even sometimes society gives us this message that we're to do everything and be everything to everyone. Like it's not realistic, it's not healthy. And when we can remove it and say, you know what, it's time for me. I need to break from my children. I need to break from family responsibilities. I need to break from work. I need to now do some work on what I need as an individual, right? And so for me, especially being in a helper role, I just became so consumed by being available to everyone and being accessible to everyone, and pretending that because I'm a helper, that I don't need help. And actually, during my moment of, I guess, pain, I would call it, I came across Brene Brown by mistake, one of her TED Talks videos, and I was like, who is this woman? And then I just got so involved with all her talks, and her, sharing her research around shame and vulnerability, and stepping into courage. And she said something that really stood out to me. And she was talking about how she went to see her therapist. So she sees a therapist who sees therapists. And I thought to myself, my gosh, like, she's a researcher, she's a successful businesswoman, she's a therapist, she also sees a therapist. Like, not that it was like totally bizarre to me, but it was just a reminder that even though you may have the skills or the resources, or you just have the capacity and energy and time to support others, doesn't mean that you're not worthy of that care and support. And so I've done a lot of work, especially around self-compassion, and especially through the healing process, because there's many times where I would feel bad for saying no to someone because I just really needed rest in that moment. And my mother-in-law told me this very important message when I was working, because I was doing so much. I was going to school part-time, I was working full-time, I was doing everything else. And I said, I'm just exhausted. And she said, you got to set some boundaries. You've got to remember that every yes has a no, and every no has a yes. So if you're saying yes to a friend for coffee, acknowledge, what are you saying no to? Maybe you're saying no to not being able to study for that exam, or maybe you've had a really long day with clients and facilitation, and you're drained and you don't have anything to give. And so if I say no, that means that I'm giving my body the opportunity to recover and to rest. And I'll never forget that, because it's been the foundational piece for how I set boundaries now. And we can't do it all, and we've got to break that message too. And oftentimes people, especially as an entrepreneur, we talk about like the hustle movement and hustle. And for a while, I thought like hustling meant success. You're up at 4:00 in the morning, you're going to the gym, you're eating healthy, you're doing all these business meetings, and you're doing everything. That's success, but that's not reality. And that's sometimes the message that people put out there, but it's not the truth. And so, as I'm on this journey of entrepreneur, like I'm trying to be honest and open with, even the struggles I've had. I've had a lot of successes, but I've also had some struggles along the way, and that's okay. And that's when that self-compassion comes in and says, you're doing your best, and maybe you've had a setback, and setbacks happen. They're a part of this journey, and it's okay. So let's explore how I feel about it, and then let's look at how I'm going to move forward. And yeah, so at the end of the day, I have to remind myself that yes, it's okay to be there for other people, but I can't leave myself behind anymore. I'm not willing to go back to that place where I was. I think at the end of the day, the overall message is, for so long we try and control, and we try and plan everything. We try and plan our lives. We try and plan like the future. And I just think this is just, we're in a day now where we experience so much, we're seeing so much tragedy and catastrophic disasters and environmental and social traumas. I just think that, it's important that we remain present in the here and now. You know, one of the quotes actually that I try and live by is from Lauryn Hill. I love Lauryn Hill. And she says, we can't plan life. All we can do is be available for it. And that just always is something that I try and strive for, when I'm feeling anxious about things, or I'm feeling, you know, um, discouraged by what's going on in our society, that, how am I going to show up today in the present, and try and just really be mindful about the lived experiences that I'm having right now, because the future is not guaranteed. The past is there and it's happened, and also it's brought me on this journey. So I know that it's moving me forward. And now that I'm more focused on how I can live on purpose, I think it's really helping me be present in the now, and being mindful, and just, I just want to, with my work, just spread that message, share that message that we just need to live right now, today, one day at a time.